Today we will discuss about digital signatures. So let me tell you first of all what is the definition of digital signature as per NIST, right? So if you remember, NIST is a National Institute of Standards and all those things, right? And there is this uh, a federal information processing standard. According to this particular document, they define digital signature as it is the result of a cryptographic transformation of data that, when properly implemented, provide a mechanism for verifying origin authentication, one thing, data integrity, the second thing, and signatory non-repudiation. These three things, right? So what is digital signature? It is some sort of cryptographic transformation that we done on the message itself, right, which we are signing, which actually allow us to verify origin authentication, data integrity, and signatory non-repudiation. Okay, and therefore digital signature is a data dependent bit pattern. The input to data signature algorithm is the message itself, right? So depending upon each message, the signature with respect to the message changes. Okay, and this is how digital signatures are different from e-signing, right? When we e-sign something, our signature remains the same. It is not dependent upon the message, right? Whereas in digital signature, the pattern or the signatures depend upon the message. With message, signature changes. Okay, so this is an important difference between digital signature and e-signing. Now in this, what we will do is actually we will generate a construct, and by we I mean the digital signature algorithm will generate a construct that allow us to authenticate the origin content of the message in such a way that we can prove this to a third party. Okay, so if A is communicating with B, and suppose there is some sort of dispute between A and B, we can involve third party, and this third party is able to resolve the issue by checking the authenticity of the message, of the origin, by checking the content of the message, and by having signatory non-repudiation property. Okay, so this is very important thing, that even if a person, a third person, or a third external entity can prove or can, somehow resolve the issue if there is any. Okay, without having much information. Okay, so this is an important property of digital signatures. Then sender cannot deny having sent message, which is called non-repudiation. If I send a message, I cannot deny, right? Because somehow my uh, you can say private key or cryptographic key is involved in signing procedure, and because of that I cannot deny that I am not the one who sent the message. Okay, definitely one can claim that, I lost my cryptographic key, or it was stolen and used by somebody else, but in that case there is an entire legal procedure that you have to follow. Okay, so digital signature, there are few important properties. First property we have seen, it depends upon the message. Okay, so with message digital signature changes. Second, we have seen that even a third party, without having much information, like without having the information of my private key or something like that, that third party can prove the authenticity of the origin content of the message. Okay, and I cannot non-repudiate, like I cannot repudiate. So we have the service of non-repudiation. I cannot deny the act that I did. Okay, so these are important features of digital signatures. Now you might be thinking that in the last video we have seen that MAC hash functions, all these things are also used for providing message authentication. And if you remember, message authentication will also cover these three things, right? Origin authentication, data integrity, and signatory non-repudiation. Then why there is a need of digital signatures? So let me answer that question. So basically, when we involve the third party in between, right? So suppose if we are using Mac as our digital signatures, the problem is if you have to prove the validity of the Mac to a third party, you need to reveal the key. Okay, because if you remember, when we generate MAC with respect to any message, the algorithm will take key and the message, both the ends, at both the ends. If you have to verify the MAC, you need the same key and the same message. Okay, so if you want third party to validate something, you have to reveal the key to them, okay, along with the message. So that is something which is not desirable. Second thing is, if one can verify the MAC, he can also create the MAC, right? So suppose Alice and Bob are the communicating parties. Now, if Bob can verify the MAC, okay, he can create it also because he have the access of K and M. So to create and to verify, both of these information are needed. So one who can verify the MAC can also create the MAC, which is again not desirable, right? Then MAC does not allow a distinction to be made between the parties sharing the key. So if I am having this particular message, suppose I am having the message and the signature, okay, I don't know who is the creator of this message, either A or B. I know that, it is someone from A and B, but I cannot uniquely identify the party which sent the message. Why? Because the key is shared. Okay. So again, this is something which is not desirable in digital signatures. Although computing MAC is much faster than computing digital signature, but it is very important to have digital signature in place because, of the reasons that we have discussed. So if I am the person who is signing the message, I don't want to reveal my secret key or any type of key to anybody else, right? So that is the difference between MAC and digital signatures. Now let's see how to create digital signatures. So generally people will say, okay, we'll start creating digital signatures using symmetric key. Okay, but let's see what is the problem with symmetric key. So if we use symmetric crypto systems, symmetric encryption for authenticating the message, what we can do? So again, we have two parties, A and B, that is Alice and Bob. Now, if we use symmetric key encryption, then we have to share a key. Let's say K. Okay. Now, how Alice can create the signature with respect to the message? Maybe he will take the message and encrypt the message using key K. Okay. So this is a sign. This shows the message M is encrypted using key K. Okay, and then we can concatenate it with the original message, and this will become our signature. This will become our signature, right? Message appended with the signature is sent at the other end. But can we say it as a digital signature?
No, ma'am.
No, this is not a digital signature, right? Because it is violating the very important property. So if we have this third party, TTP, we call it trusted third party. If we have this third party, the party cannot determine whether Alice have created this signature or Bob has created this signature, right? Because anyways, M is with both of them and K is with both of them, right? So it is very difficult to identify one entity, and hence we cannot consider it as a digital signatures, right? So according to, the classical digital signature, what we need to do is we need to involve some trusted third party. Okay, so in this example, let there is a party called C or Kathy. Now this is the third party. Now what is the role of this third party? So Alice and Bob do not trust each other, but somehow they are trusting the third party. Okay, so we will have a group of people, and by mutually they have decided that this will become the third party, trusted third party, and each communicating party will share the key with this third party. Okay, we are not sharing the key with each other, rather we will share the key with the trusted third party, right? So in this case, Alice and Bob will share their key with Kathy. Okay, so Kathy has key of Alice as well as key of Bob. Okay. Now, if there was any dispute, what we will do is Kathy, let's call it the Kathy as judge. Okay. Kathy will decipher both the messages because she has the key to um decrypt it, right? She has the access of the key, and hence, so whenever Alice will send a message to Bob, how Bob will verify? Bob will send that message to Kathy. Kathy will verify that yes, whether it is coming from Alice or not by decrypting it using the key shared with Alice. And if it is so, if it is verified, what Kathy will do? Kathy will encrypt the message with Bob's key so that Bob can open and share it, right? So, I mean, the overall idea here is we are involving a trusted third party to establish the validation or for the verification of source and destination. Okay, so this is a very classic example. This is what we want to achieve through digital signatures. Now let's see how we can do this actually. So according to Phipps, there are three digital signature algorithms that can be used. So the first one is digital signature algorithm, the classic digital signature algorithm, okay, which is quite abstract in nature, right? So this will show just the idea how the digital signatures will work. And then we have variation of RSA, which is called RSA DSA, RSA digital signature algorithm. And then we have digital signatures based on elliptic curve. Okay. So if you have noticed, we are not using symmetric encryption anymore, right? We are just using public key encryption scheme or public key crypto system to develop the digital signature, and for because of the obvious reason that we have discussed previously. Okay, so this is called ECDSA, elliptic curve digital signature algorithm, and there is an algorithm which is based on RSA. Okay, so let's delve deeper and see how these algorithms work. So first of all, let me tell you, we will use public key digital signature. Okay, and that will become the base of our digital signature algorithm. So the overall idea here is Alice will encipher the message using her private key, and Bob or any other third party can cross check or validate it using the public key of Alice. Okay, and this is how we will verify digital signatures, right? So this is the basic algorithm, which is called digital signature algorithm, and this is the diagram for the classic algorithm. So here message, so there is any digital signature generation algorithm you can create. You can use either RSA or EC or whatever you want. Okay, but what you have to do is you have to give message as an input in the digital signature generation algorithm along with Bob's private key in if Bob would like to send the message to Alice. Okay, so Bob private key and the message will go as an input in the digital signature generation algorithm, and there is some output which we call it as Bob's signature. Okay, so this is Bob's signature for this particular message. Every time, please remember that whenever I talk about digital signature, it is with respect to a particular message. So this is Bob's signature for message M. Okay, because digital signature always changes, keep on changing with the change in the message. All right. Now the signature is appended with the message and sent, over the channel. And at the Alice end, what Alice will do, Alice will take the signature, decrypt it using Bob's public key, okay, and can validate whether the signature is correct or not. Okay, so this is the general DSA, a generic digital signature algorithm. You can use any algorithm in this case. Okay, so the overall idea is this. Now, in this, no confidentiality is achieved, right? Because message is sending in a plain text form. We are here just providing the signature. Okay. Now, let's move to a specific algorithm. So, what we can do is, what can we write inside this digital signature generation algorithm? What we can do inside this is, we can pass the message from a cryptographic hash function. Let's call it H. And when we pass it through this function, the output could be a hash code. Let's call it H. Okay, so this is the hash code corresponding to the message M. Now what we can do is we can encrypt this hash code using Bob's private key, and this will become our signature. At the receiver end, what Alice can do, Alice can compute the hash value with respect to this message. Also, on the other hand, she can decrypt the signature and get hash dash. Okay, so H dash is something, the hash value which is sent from the sender's end, and H is the value which is computed at receiver end. So if these two value matches, the algorithm can return signature is valid. Otherwise, algorithm will return signatures are not valid. Okay, so this is a basic digital signature algorithm. Please remember, there is no confidentiality in the basic version. Okay, right. Now let's see how we can have different variations of digital signature. So let me tell you RSA digital signature. If you remember RSA algorithm that we have already discussed in previous video, the digital signature based on RSA are exactly same as RSA algorithm. Okay. So just to recall, in RSA algorithm, 3 steps are involved, right? First step is key generation step, where we will generate public private pair for each communicating parties. So this is the first step. Second step is encryption, right? So there is a given formula through which we can do encryption. And then at the receiver end, we will do decryption. So these are the 3 important steps associated with RSA algorithm. Now, same steps in digital signatures, we will follow the same steps with a slight change in the name and a slight change in the expressions, right? So let's see what is that. So key generation is exactly same. Okay, so key generation, there also we will generate, we will pick a large number n and then generate E and D. D will become our private key and E comma N will become our public key. Same will happen here as well. Okay, now here, so in that case, E and N is used at time of encryption, right? At the time of encryption, E and N of receiver, okay, at the time of encryption, where D is used at the time of decryption. Okay, now what happened in this? Now here, just this thing is get reversed, right? So at the time of generation, we will use private key, and at the time of verification, we will use public key. Okay, so encryption is called as signing step in digital signature, and decryption is known as verifying signature step in digital signature. Okay, so when we are encrypting, actually we are creating the sign. Okay, and when we are decrypting, we are actually verifying the signature, right? So there is this straightforward analogy between RSA digital signature and RSA. The only difference is in encryption we use public key, but here while signing we will use private key of sender. Okay, whereas during verification we use public key of sender. Okay, so that we can verify that test, right? So here the formula, if you remember, was m to the power E mod n, which becomes m to the power d mod n here, and just reverse was there. Okay, so it will generate C, and we applied private key on C, and here we applied public key. Okay, so this is how digital signatures work. So there are 3 steps: key generation, signing the message, and verifying the message. Okay, right. So this is a simple example of RSA algorithm. So suppose these are the public private key of Alice. Alice want to send a message to Bob. So what Alice will do, Alice will append the message with the encrypted message, which is encrypted using his private key, right? And if there is a dispute or any problem happens, then maybe the judge can decrypt the message using public key of Alice. And this is what we want, right? So if there is a dispute, the third party can validate the things without having private key of the sender or receiver. Okay. So this is how RSA algorithm is used to create the digital signature, and this is how it works. Okay. Now, there are some important points that you have to keep in mind while using RSA digital signatures. Okay, so now please pay attention here. You have to use private key to encipher the message. Okay, that is, we agreed, right? We have to use our private key. Now, the key points are never sign random documents. This is the first point you have to remember. Never sign random documents. So, you may observe that there is no harm in generating the signs, right? Everything is properly secured, these and that. But the first rule is, or first important key point is, never sign random documents. The second point is, when signing, always sign hash, not the document. This is the second point. Okay. So in the previous example, we are seeing that we just try to encrypt the entire message using private key, right? So this point says, whenever you are creating digital signatures, you have to first find out the hash value of the message and then apply encryption or anything on the hashed map instead of applying it to the entire message. Okay, so this is the second important point. And third is, don't just encipher message and then sign it, or vice versa. Okay. So first you encipher the message and this enciphered message is then signed. Okay. Don't do that. Right. Because what happens is the receiver can change public private key pair and this will cause problem. Okay. So we will see two attacks. With this, it will be very clear to you that why these points are quite important, right? So let's have a look at the first possible attack on digital signatures. All right. Now, in this example, Alice and Bob are communicating as usual, and these are the credentials of belonging to Alice and Bob. Okay. Now, what Alice did, Alice asked Bob to sign a random message. She said, please sign this particular message so that I can verify a few things, right? All right. So what Bob did, Bob signed the message, right? So message encrypted with his public with his private key. Okay, D of B is the private key of Bob. So Bob signed the message. Okay, and this is the value she got. Okay, this is the signature attached. Okay, now she asked Bob to sign this particular statement, AYE. Okay, which AYE, which is corresponding to this value. Then he signed that value also, and this is the cipher text, or this is the sign corresponding to AYE. Okay, so this is sign 1 and this is sign 2, which he got. Now what Alice did is, Alice compute a new message, and the new message looks something like this. It is a product of the previous two messages. Okay, so if you remember, the two messages that are signed by Bob is, one is 225536 and the other message was 002404. Okay, so she multiplied these two messages, these two numbers, and get another number, and this is nothing but the new message. Okay, so she smartly give this random number so that the multiplication of this value and this value will become equal to NAY, which Alice want Bob to sign. Are you getting my point? Okay, and if you if you calculate this, the multiplication of this number is equal to this message, and hence the sign which is generated for this message is this and this message is this. If you can multiply, you can get the sign which is corresponding to this message. Okay, so Alice now claim that Bob has signed this message. Okay, and then there was a dispute. Then the judge came into the picture, and judge asked Alice that, okay, if you are claiming that Bob has signed this message for which Bob is actually denying, you have to provide the signature, digital signature, which is attached to it. Alice said, okay, this is the digital signature which is attached to it. Okay, so what judge compute this, and he found that yes, actually Alice is correct. This is the signature which is corresponding to this message, and hence Bob is toast. Okay, are you beginning to see the attack actually? Yes.
Ma'am, is this general or it is for only this specific values? Like if we multiply messages and doing mod, we
It is
get.
easy. It is quite easy to get such pairs, right? So if your intention is to perform attack, then you can definitely devise some sort, because there is this random number involved here, right? So this message does not have to make any sense. You can keep this message anything. Are you getting my point? So this is a meaningful message, and this is a meaningful message. Somehow you can divide the message and can get a random value, so that when that value is multiplied in one of the message, the other value can be derived. Okay, this is quite easy, right?
Yes, ma'am.
And you know, so what are the takeaway from this attack? As I told you, do not sign random messages. Okay, if Bob has not signed the first random messages, this attack was not actually occur. Okay, so this is the first important point you have to remember. Second important point is, while you are signing, not sign do not sign the message itself, just sign the cryptographic hash of the message. Okay, because in that case then it is difficult to have that attack. Okay, so it is very difficult to find two messages which is having the same hash value. Okay, that we have already learned about. Okay? So these are the two important points that I would like to mention through this attack. Now there is one more point: don't just encipher the message and then sign it, and vice versa. Now let's see what will happen in this case. Okay, now let's see how Bob will take revenge from Alice. Okay, now what Bob is doing is, so Bob, Alice agreed to sign this contract, LUR. This is the contract which Alice will sign for Bob. Okay. But what Bob wants her to sign this contract. Okay. But he knows that Alice will never sign this contract. Okay. So what to do? Now see how Alice will be forged. So Bob sent this particular message for signing to Alice. Alice take this message and sign it. Okay, so how she signed it? She encrypted the message using Bob's public key, and then she put the signature by private key of her. Okay, and this is the output. Now, what Bob did was, Bob computed a R. So see, what is the scenario here? Let me rephrase it. Bob want Alice to sign this, but Alice signed this. Okay. Now what Bob, and while signing, somehow the public key of Bob is involved, right? Public key, public private key of, or you can say keys of Bob are involved. Key pair of Bobs are involved, right? Now what Bob will do is, Bob will somehow find a correlation between the message that he wants Alice to sign and the message which actually Alice signed, and accordingly made changes in his public and private key pair. Are you getting the idea? Yes. So what Bob did is, so this is the message which Bob wants her to sign. So what he compute that if this message is raised with R mod this number, what is the value of R which can give him this number? Okay, this is the message which actually Alice signed. And he found that the value of R is 9175. Now what he did, he just multiplied this number with his public key. Okay, So somehow this is what happened. Okay, and then he changed his public private key accordingly. So this will become his public key and this will become his private key. And then he claimed that Alice actually signed this message. Again, there was a dispute. Judge came into picture. Now judge says that, okay, let me decrypt the message. Please give me your public and private key. Okay, I don't need your public key, but I need your private key to decrypt it, right? So Bob said, okay, this is my private key. Please take it and decrypt it. So when the judge decrypt the message using this particular key, this is the message which he retrieved. And hence Alice is toast. Okay. So what is the problem here? The problem is what Alice did is Alice encrypted the entire message and then put a sign on it, which give rise to this type of situation, right? In this case, if we solve this equation, if we get an R, we can multiply that R with a public key and can change our public private key pairs. Okay, so this is what written here. If you recall, changing public private key can cause problem. Okay, therefore never try to encrypt the message and then sign it, right? Okay, so these are some of the attacks which can be performed on RSA digital signatures. And for that, you have to keep in mind these three things to avoid this attack or to prevent these attacks from happening. Okay, so this is all about RSA digital signature. Now let's quickly discuss something more about elliptical curve digital signature, ECDSA. Okay, and why I am discussing this? I am discussing this because nowadays, if you know, cryptocurrency is everywhere, right? And in cryptocurrency, ECDSA is used. Okay, this is the version of digital signature which is used in Bitcoins and all. Okay, so I thought it is good to explain you or give an idea of how this elliptic curve crypto system work, as we already covered elliptic curve ciphers, right? So the idea is same here. Elliptic curves are these curves, as if you remember from our last videos. Now what we need to do is, so if we have to create a signature based on elliptic curve, you have to choose a point P on the curve, on elliptic curve, right? Then you have to choose a private key and compute Q, which becomes the public key of the receiver, right? This is the public key of the receiver. K private times P. Okay, so this is what happened at the receiver end. Now, if I have to digitally sign it, what I will do is I will just, choose a random number K. Okay, this is again, this is a key generation. This is signing, which is correspond to encryption in ECC, and this is verification. Okay, so now signing and verification is little bit different in elliptic curve digital signatures. So now here we have to generate two signatures, right? So you have to compute R. R is nothing but K times P. P is the point which is on the curve. Okay, this is a global parameter shared between receiver and sender. So R is just this value. If you remember, what is this? This is some coordinate X and Y. Okay, so R is some value of X and Y. Okay, now you have to create, compute small s. Now, what is a small s? Small s is another signature which is computed in this manner. So K inverse, this is the random number K inverse M minus K private X. Okay, now please remember, sorry, I actually, yeah. So this is a point chosen by the sender only, right? Because we are working with digital signatures. Everything is opposite in digital signature. In elliptic curve cipher, these are the points at receiver side, right? Now these are the points at sender side. So suppose Alice want to send Bob the message. Alice will select a private key and compute her public key, and then select a point, compute R by selecting a random number K, random integer K, and S is computed by this equation. Okay. What is X? X is the first component of R. Okay. Now, what is the digital signature? Digital signature is the message along with R and S. This becomes our digital signature. What is R? R is just this random number times P. Okay. And what is S? S will be computed using this formula. Okay, fine. Now, what will happen at the verification end? At the recipient end, what the receiver has to do? Receiver has to compute two values, V1 and V2. V1 is X time Q, okay, plus SR. Now, let me open this for you. What is Q? Q is K private times P, okay. So, this is the first value. I don't think there is a need to put a bracket here. Plus, what is S? S is K inverse M minus K private X times R. Okay. Now, if I replace R, R is nothing but K times P. Okay. Now, this K and K inverse will be cancelled. Okay. So, this is 1 by K, K and K cancel. So, let me remove this. We are left with this. Now, if we have to solve this equation, we can take P common. If I take P common, we are left with X K private plus M minus K private times X. Okay. Now, these two entities cancelled and we remain with M times P. Okay. And we know M and P. So, if V1 matches with V2, we can say signature is validated. Okay. And this is how elliptic curve digital signatures work. Okay. So this is the example. So I think you can pause the video here and you can just do the calculations. It is exactly same as we have discussed, right? So you can verify with these values that how it is working. Okay. Right. So yes, so this is how, so this is at Alice end, I mean at sender's end, and this is at the receiver's end. Okay, so this is signing process and this is verification process. Okay, so you can just calculate. All right. Now, let me come to another important thing, which is called digital certificates. Okay. So why, I mean, see, so we are using public key encryption, right? Now, what will happen? So suppose we are using RSA. We have seen RSA is quite a powerful algorithm and all those stuffs, right? Now, there is one weakness in RSA. Okay. And what is that weakness? So, when we use public key encryption, we have to share our public key, right? And this is something which is an important feature, okay? And this can be forged. The public announcement can be forged. Now, what do I mean by this? Suppose there are few communicating parties, A, B, C, D, E, and all those things, right? Now, suppose somebody is sending, so E is sending message to B, C, and D that this is the public key of A. Okay. Now, this message is publicly announced by E. Okay. And this is quite possible, right? Anybody can forge somebody else's public key. Definitely, it can be identified, it can be detected after some time, but during the time until it remains undetected, there are chances that something bad will happen. Okay, so this is the problem with RSA or specifically public key encryption, right? So, although the approach is very convenient, very satisfying, but this is the major weakness that anyone can forge the public announcement. Okay, some user could pretend to be Alice and then send a public key to another participant or broadcast the public key, And until Alice discovered that there was some forgery and something like that, and can alert to other participants, there was something that has already been happened. Okay? So sometimes it may be possible that somebody will share their secret key with Eve. Okay, that could also be possible. So what is the solution to this problem? The solution of this problem is to have certificates. Okay. Now, what do I mean by certificates? Certificates is something which has public key, but along with the public key, it also has some information about the user, right? So a certificate includes public key plus user ID of the key owner. Okay, so there is a specific ID which belongs to that user. Now, along with these two things, it is also having some information about the CA. Now, what is CA? CA is a certificate authority. Okay, so we are calling third party. So here a trusted third party and all. So when we talk about digital certificates, we call authority as certificate authority, right? So typically the certificate authority is trusted by the community of the users. For example, there is a government agency involved or some financial institution which is involved. Okay, so I mean, you might have observed that while making a payment, we have different parties involved, right? Like bill payment, PayPal, etc. So these are the third parties which are trusted by a community of users. Okay, and they are verified by government or something like that. Okay, so basically the essence is we can trust them. Okay, so the certificate has three important information. First is the user ID, which belongs to a particular user, his public key, and then the information about the certificate authority, which is actually verifying the certificate. And then this particular things, all these three things are signed by the certificate authority. Okay, and this entire thing is known as digital certificate. This is known as digital certificate. Okay, now a user can present his or her public key to the authority in a secure manner and obtain this certificate. Now this certificate can be published. Okay, and anyone who needs this user public key can obtain the certificate and verify that this is a valid certificate of the attached trusted signature, right? So public key is not then distributed by the user, but whosoever wants the public key, they can get this certificate. Okay, and get the public key. So let's see how it works actually. I hope the basic idea is clear. What is the need of digital certificates, right? So if so suppose Bob wants a certificate, right? So what Bob has to do? Bob has to create his ID, his public key, and he has to select one certificate authority. Okay, and put this information, all this information, and give this information to the certificate authority. Now, what certificate authority will do? They will generate a hash of these three information, and then that hash code will be encrypted using private key of certificate authority. Okay, and that signed, this will actually act as a signed. Okay, so this is the message, you have hashed the message and sign it with the private key. Okay, and now who is the signer here? The certificate authority is the signer here. Okay, so the certificate authority will sign it, and this is the signature, and this entire thing will now become our signed certificate. So the certificate authority will give the signed certificate to Bob. What Bob will do? Bob will publish it. Okay, now whosoever need Bob's public key, they can come and get this certificate. Now what they will do with this certificate? So with this certificate, they will actually compute the hash first. Okay, and then when they compute the hash, they will get some value, and So this is the value they will get, actually they are supposed to get, right? And then they will decrypt this signature using public key of certificate authority. If these two things matches, they can verify that yes, this public key belongs to Bob. Okay, and hence this is a authentic key, and then they can continue their communication. Yes, are you with me here? Any questions?
No, ma'am.
Is it clear why digital certificates are used?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, great. All right. So if you have heard of, uh, so basically, digital certificates, so digital signatures are specific to a person. Okay. So if I have to sign a message, I will use digital signature. But what if a web server or such entities would like to have, verify themselves? So they basically use digital signatures. So if you will, you know, visit a website, so suppose you are opening Gmail, you want to authenticate that I am talking to a right server, I'm talking to actually the Gmail server. Okay, and for that what happened, there is an algorithm which run into your browser, which will validate the web server before start communication. Okay, so you might have noticed that sometimes in the URL it is written non-trusted with a red color. Sometimes it is a green color, trusted, verified. Okay, so what have you observed this?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. So what is this? So if a site is non-trusted, means that particular web server has not generated their digital certificate, and hence we cannot able to verify them. Okay. So all the trusted sites actually get this digital certificate in place. So whenever browser starts communication from a server, first there is a validation of digital certificates, and after that communication needs to be proceeded. Okay, so this is actually used at various level, at the level of IP security, transport layer security, and many other levels, right? And there are few standards which are related with this, like X.9509 standards and things like that. Okay, so this is how digital certificates work, and it is mainly for a big organization, for a big web server, or mail server, or any online services. If you are a big name, you have to have the digital certificates, right? Okay. Now let's discuss one more important concept. So while learning about symmetric encryption, lots of you have a question that, ma'am, how to commute the secret key? Okay. So in symmetric encryption, there is a secret key K which need to be shared between sender and receiver, right? So what is the way to share this secret key? Also in one of the video, I told you that, we use public key encryption to share the secret key, right? So let me tell you the exact method how we share the secret key. And this particular thing is known as digital envelope. Okay, and the analogy is very much similar to how we work in real world. So suppose if I want to send a key to you, okay, and it is a secret key, what I can do is I can take a box, I can put the key into that box, and then I will lock that box and send it to you. Okay, you have to first open the box and get the key. Something similar will work, and this is known as digital envelope. Okay, so suppose this is a symmetric key which needs to be shared between these two parties, okay, sender and the receiver. So what sender has to do, sender has to create digital envelope. Okay, now how to create digital envelope? So sender will just select a message, prepare a message. This is the message. He will select a random key which will act as a symmetric key. Okay, secret key, random key. Then encrypt this message from this key. Okay, and this is the encrypted message. So this is the first part. Okay, this is the first thing which will go inside the digital envelope. Then he will encrypt the key using receiver's public key, and then this encrypted key will also put in the box, in the envelope. Okay, so this is the second thing. So there are two things in this digital envelope. One is an encrypted message. This message is encrypted using the symmetric key. And then other thing is the encrypted symmetric key using receiver's public key. And here's where we are using public key encryption. Okay, so encrypt the key, put it in the digital envelope. Now this envelope will go to receiver's end. What receiver will do, receiver will take out these two things separately. First, he will decrypt this key using his private key, and he get this key in the unencrypted form, and then this key is used for decryption of this message. If we get the correct message, if we are able to decrypt, it means that the encrypted key is right, or the shared key is shared. Okay, or the secret key is shared between the two parties. So this is how digital envelope works.